We're waiting for us to start streaming. And we are going live. Hold on a second. I lost my. Okay, good evening, everybody. This is the Community Consolidated School District 46 Special Board of Education meeting, Monday, July 27, 2020 at 6:30. We are at the Grays Lake Middle School with the majority of the board remote. What I'd like to do is change up the agenda a little bit. Normally we have public comment at the beginning of the meeting. What I would like to do is move, if everybody is okay with it, move the public comment to after the presentation of the reopening plan. That way, those that are online can hear the reopening plan, formulate their questions as they need to, and then we'll give about 10 to 15-minute break to where they can submit their public comment and for staff to be able to kind of collect it and go over it. Is that okay with everybody?
Yep.
Okay. So first I need a call to order and a roll call vote.
Weedman.
Here.
Mack.
Here.
Braden.
Here.
LaCroix.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Nash.
Here.
Strack.
Here.
Okay, that has established a quorum. Next, I need an approval to approve the revised agenda that I just laid out.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Miller.
Aye.
Strack.
Aye.
Mack.
Aye.
Weedman.
Aye.
Braden.
Aye.
LaCroix.
Aye.
Nash.
Aye.
Okay. Next will be the presentation by Dr. Ruthman and her team regarding the reopening plan. Again, please wait till the end of the presentation to submit any public comment, and we'll get to them afterwards.
All right, you ready for us?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and just to clarify, Mr. Weedman mentioned that just a few of us are on site. So Mr. Weedman and Mr. Mack and I are all on site here at the middle school at GMS, and that's why we're all masked. All right, then here we go. Good evening. In May of 2020, the CCSD 46 reopening team, over 100 people strong, began envisioning how to reopen schools as safely as possible for the fall of 2020. On Wednesday, July 15th, the members of that team presented to the Board of Education a tentative reopening plan consistent with known information and guidance at that time. Families were offered two options: remote learning or on-site learning. However, new information has become available, feedback has been shared, and conversations have continued. These conversations have led to plans for remote learning for all students, with a target of the start of the second trimester, November 9th, as a potential date for offering on-site learning for the families who request that, or possibly a hybrid option. The revisions to our plans are based upon minimizing risk to students and families, as we have watched COVID-19 numbers increase and programs close down due to positive cases. In addition, we are committed to providing cohesive instruction to students, limiting the interruptions that we expected to be likely on site under the current guidance related to quarantining and contact tracing. I want to pause here and talk a bit about surveys. At our July 15th Board of Education meeting, we displayed data from the family interest surveys that were completed at the end of June. We'll take a moment and display them again. As you can see, at the time, 63% of families said they would send their students to school with social distancing, and 28% were uncertain. And 34% said they would voluntarily participate in remote learning, and 36% were unsure. As mentioned earlier, after the last board meeting, we surveyed families, asking them to select a remote or on-site option. Here are the results of that survey. We will give you a moment to review them. I've been asked if we based our change in plans on this data. I've also been asked if we made the decision to go to remote learning for all students prior to even doing the survey. Neither of these is the case. As happens sometimes, everything was happening at once. There has been constant new information. So I want to talk with you about our current situation and hope to be able to provide a bit of clarity in the midst of what we all know has been worldwide perpetual uncertainty. We prepared a report and sent out a survey. If you were at the last Board of Education meeting, you know that some of our board members were already expressing concern about beginning on-site learning at the start of the school year. Concerns have continued to grow. And at the same time, new information was coming in, and I'd like to talk with you a little bit about that information. And Chris, I'm going to ask you to stop sharing your screen for a bit. I have no new slides right here, and I just want to be with everyone. I'm going to go off-road a little bit. So there are the metrics. As Mark Pfister, Executive Director of the Lake County Health Department, told other Lake County superintendents and me recently, Lake County is going in the wrong direction. There's been an increase in COVID-19 positivity in the last 2 weeks, and states are going on the no travel list if they have an incidence rate of 15 positive cases per 100,000. Last Thursday, we had 93 new cases in Lake County, which Mr. Pfister tells us is a daily rate of 13.2 per 100,000, pretty close to that 15. So right here in Lake County, we are getting close to that state no travel list. There's also an uptick in cases throughout Illinois. This past Saturday, Illinois announced the 4th straight day with more than 1,200 new cases, resulting in the highest 7-day rolling averages since late May. Those are just a few examples of how we see that the data is going in the wrong direction. There is the evidence of schools and programs closing around us. We've likely all heard what happened at Lake Zurich High School, where the sports camps opened up and closed down after 2 days due to 69 COVID-19 cases. The Lake County Department of Health made 400 contract tracing calls, and that was after the school had to trace and share all of the possible contacts for the handful of students originally involved. Another Lake County school district opened up for a 60-person summer school program. Over a span of 6 days, they had to remove at least one staff member or student every day because they'd come into close contact with someone who had tested positive, and those people had to quarantine. All of this and more caused us to continue talking, envisioning classes closing down, students quarantining, and moving back and forth between classes, remote, on-site, no continuity. And then teachers quarantining. And of course, try as we might, our schools not being able to fill those substitute openings. Keeping students and staff in a remote setting brings us safety and it brings us continuity. And then the guidance keeps changing. For example, we were told that individuals need to be 6 feet apart. Then we were told that it was okay if they are 3 feet apart, as long as they are masked. Although the written guidance from ISB in their FAQ still says that students don't need to be 6 feet apart, we've also just been told that socially distancing, quote, as much as possible, which is what it says on the ISB documents over and over, it really means that if you can't keep students 6 feet apart, then you need to come up with another plan. That, of course, may change again tomorrow. And no one is able to explain why it is okay to have 50 students on a bus if they are supposed to be socially distancing 6 feet apart. There is even discrepancy regarding what being in, quote, close contact for exposure means. The Illinois State Board of Education says that it is within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes. And the Illinois Department of Public Health says that it is within 6 feet for more than a few minutes. We don't know what more than a few means. Very reasonably, we've been asked how we will know when we should bring our students back on site to learn in classrooms. Unfortunately, we can't fully answer that question because we have been awaiting information about such metrics from county, state, and apparently federal health professionals for about 6 weeks. We were told that guidance was going to come from the Lake County Department of Health, and then we were told it would come from the Illinois Department of Public Health, but then the CDC was changing course. We still don't have the information. Keeping our students and staff in a remote setting allows us to let the health experts come to some kind of consensus. The contradictions and course changes have gone on, and we believe that they will continue to happen. Making the decision now to keep our students and staff in a remote setting allows us to focus on providing the best possible remote instruction, instead of diluting our efforts by continuing to plan for 2 options, only to find 2 weeks or 2 days before school starts, or perhaps 2 days after the start of school, that we need to revert to an all-remote program. We know that we have many families who are upset by this new recommendation. We are upset about it too. Our teachers and assistants and secretaries and principals and custodians want nothing more than to greet our students' excited faces and work with them in person. No one gets into these jobs to sit at the other end of a computer screen, at least not at the elementary, middle school level. But this is where we are, feeling sadder, but also safer. This is such a difficult time. We are so eager to provide on-site instruction, sharing the joy and energy of being together. However, we are dedicated to the physical and social emotional health and safety of our CCSD 46 families and staff. And we believe that this revised plan supports that health and safety. We also know that an energized approach to remote learning brings us new opportunities, and we are excited to explore those. So now I'm going to hand this over to Paul Lewis, our Assistant Superintendent for Teaching, Learning, and Assessment. He, along with 2 union leaders, will talk about our remote learning 2.0 plan, and then I will wrap things up, letting you know about our efforts to support students who need a safe place to be supervised during remote learning.
Remote Learning 2.0 for the 2021 school year will be significantly different from the remote learning used at the end of the 1920 school year based on feedback received from families and staff, and the revised guidelines and expectations provided by the state. We know that our revised plans will feel like a completely different experience for students compared to last spring. There will be at least 5 hours of daily learning activities, including regular direct instruction through Google Meet and recorded means. Students will follow a daily schedule and will be expected to attend all meeting sessions. Attendance will be taken. Families can expect whole group, small group, and individual teacher-student interactions. An assessment will return to a more traditional grading, unlike the past incomplete system that was used in the spring. Our instructional assistants will be used to support our students and teachers during instructional times as appropriate. A detailed list of remote learning responsibilities is presented in the written plan. Here is a very abbreviated list. The school district must develop a professional development plan for remote learning and identify curriculum that can be facilitated remotely. Individual schools should develop plans to check on students' well-being. Teachers should provide academically rigorous, differentiated remote learning activities that promote student growth and should communicate regularly with students and families. Again, our instructional assistants will be involved in this instruction and learning activities. Students should attend all Google classes and meetings and complete assigned work by due dates. We will, of course, want them to be engaged and ready to collaborate. Parents will be expected to provide a space for students to complete remote learning work. Set a schedule to help students establish and follow regular daily routines, and review and monitor assignments with students frequently. One of the aspects we need to talk about is early childhood. Our early childhood team has been hard at work in creating a revised program during the pandemic. We've identified the following high priorities: ensuring a developmentally appropriate program, making effective use of time to enhance learning while in remote learning, and increasing teacher and therapist engagement time with the students. Lesson plans will include various domains for building skills, and students will be provided with activity bins containing supplies. Related services will be provided as appropriate. Students will receive a weekly activity plan that connects with supplies found in the activity bin for home-based activities. More details about the early childhood program are available in our written plan. And now I'm pleased to introduce Lynn Miscelonis, fourth grade teacher at Meadowview School and the secretary of our teachers union.
The Remote Learning 2.0 plan will be different from last spring. The plan includes a minimum of 5 hours of instruction for students in grades 1 through 8. The overall lesson design begins with a Google Meet for direct instruction. Daily attendance will be taken at grades K through 4 and for each subject area in grades 5 through 8. The instruction could also include the use of pre-recorded video lessons. Students will have time for guided practice, individual work time, small group, and individual support by their teacher, depending on their needs. Teachers will be outlining the expectations for each day's lesson and assignments, either in Google Classroom or through Seesaw. The following provides a very brief overview of a kindergarten day. Having kindergarten students ready for remote learning will take a big effort. The half-day experience allows the class size to be small. This will enable the teacher to have more interactions and support each student to a greater extent. You will see that the focus of instruction will be on literacy and numeracy. The kindergarten teachers will be embedding science and social studies topics throughout literacy and numeracy. Currently, the plan is to offer one session of PE a week, although the team is working to see how we can offer some optional art and music lessons and sessions outside of the designated school time. You will see that the focus on this slide will be on literacy overall structure of the day for students in grades 1 through 4. Building in time for getting to know the students and the class is a priority for social and emotional learning and growth. This sample outline will vary by building and grade level. Art and music lessons and sessions outside of the designated school time. Our schedules for grades 5 through 8 will vary slightly for each school based on the unique issues for each building. You will see that we will be focusing on the 4 core areas of literacy, math, science, and social science, along with our physical education and encore experiences. We continue to work on our plans for band and chorus, as we will be meeting with these teams over the next few days to determine our next steps. Now I'm pleased to introduce Leslie Armstrong-McLeod, our webmaster and president. You will see that we will be focusing on the 4 core areas of literacy.
During remote learning, each student who is currently eligible to receive special education services through an individualized education plan or has a Section 504 plan will be assigned to a case manager. Students might require an IEP meeting or Section 504 plan meeting to adjust the learning plan elements necessary to meet the needs of the students in a remote learning model. During remote learning, the assigned case manager will make contact with parents or guardians to schedule these meetings. The educational decisions regarding appropriate accommodations, modifications, and/or instructional design will be made as an IEP team based on the individual needs of each student. A full range of services will be considered as appropriate. Students who receive any combination of video therapy, teletherapy, or activity-based services. Student evaluations that were unable to be completed due to the need for in-person testing will be completed as quickly as possible once school resumes. A determination of location, either remotely or individually on site, can be made with the educational team and parent guardian. Any new or upcoming evaluations will be conducted either in person or remotely based on the educational team's recommendations and the parent guardian input for gathering appropriate data to inform eligibility determination decisions. Our EL bilingual teachers and support staff will continue to provide support for all of our identified students. Bilingual classrooms will provide instruction in both English and Spanish that is aligned to our district grade level expectations. A combination of small group and individual sessions will be taught by EL teachers through both the pull-out literacy instruction and co-taught instructional models. While it will present a few challenges, our goal is to screen as many students as possible virtually before school to determine qualifications for services. CCSD 46 is working to prioritize mental health support for our students through both classroom-based activities and support from our mental wellness team, consisting of school psychologists, school social workers, and district nursing coordinators. We recognize there is a variety of evidence supporting the need to foster relationships among students and make connections with educators. While remote learning limits face-to-face interactions, we are working to promote opportunities to create vehicles for students to engage with one another socially through virtual means and to attain support for areas that they may be a struggle for students in a remote learning model.
We are committed to providing structures that will meet the needs of our families. Therefore, we are creating safe centers for remote learning for students who need the support of the school district for adult supervision during the school day. The purpose of the safe centers is to provide an alternative location for any students who do not have an available adult to supervise them or a safe place to go for remote learning. Tutoring or individual instruction will not be available as part of the Safe Centers for Remote Learning. This program is free of charge and will be available at one or more of our school sites. Locations will be determined after families have enrolled. Students from multiple schools will be combined at one or more Safe Centers. Safe Centers for Remote Learning will be staffed by CCSD 46 employees who will supervise students while the students engage in their remote learning. Students in Safe Centers will be enrolled in the remote learning classes as part of their regular schedule from their home school. This means that students at the Safe Centers will likely be following different schedules from each other. There will be lunch breaks at the same time that students who are learning from home have lunch breaks. Meals will be provided for students who are eligible for free and reduced meals and also will be available for purchase. Allergen-free areas will be available as needed. Although some classrooms may be used, most students will likely be seated in large spaces, such as multi-purpose rooms, learning centers, etc. These will likely be multi-age spaces. Safety guideline details will be provided upon enrollment and will match the requirements previously described for any individuals who are on site in a school. Safety guidelines include wearing masks, symptom screening or self-certification, hygiene reminders, protocols for individuals who are symptomatic, and social distancing. Families whose children are enrolled in a safe center and who need extended care for their students may be able to enroll students in Right at School for a fee. More information about Right at School will be provided with enrollment forms. At this time, it is unknown if bus service will be provided. Finally, please note that if Illinois reverts to phase 2 or phase 1 or phase 3 of Restore Illinois, safe centers for remote learning may no longer be available. We will end with our important next steps. There is still work to do related to our remote learning plan. For example, we need to determine the platforms that we will be using for state and local assessments, and we are honing our plans regarding the professional development needs for our staff. We will be sending out information so that students can be enrolled in safe centers for remote learning as needed. We will get that information out to you by Tuesday, August 4th, but we'll do it sooner if we can. Please keep sending your questions to our school principals, department heads, or to me, your superintendent. The FAQ will be revised and updated. And of course, we will continue to plan for a return to on-site learning, potentially using a hybrid model. Our community has many questions. We know that you will ask them and hope that you will accept the answers as they are given, with a shared desire that things could be different right now and with honesty. And Mr. Weidman, that closes our presentation.
Thank you. Okay, so as I said before, we revised the agenda and we will now provide the next 10 to 15 minutes for those that are watching online to be able to submit questions or comments. We also have 3 individuals here in on site here in the multi-purpose room. And once we take this short break, I will open the floor to them first, giving our staff a little more time to compile the questions and be able to kind of group them into themes, I guess, if need be. So it is currently 6:59. So let's plan to open or close public comment at 7:10, and we will just kind of take a short break here. Okay. Thank you. Okay, it is now 7:10. I will give the audience members that have come to GMS an opportunity to speak first, and then we'll go through the public comments that were submitted online. So first we have Dr. Kelly Desino. Can you use that microphone there? Is that mic on? If you can, yes. Is it on? Let's make sure it's on before. Oh. There you go.
All right, can people hear me on the call? Yes, thank you. Okay, good evening. My name is Dr. Kelly Desino, and I have a 4th and 7th grader at Park School. And I'd like to make a few comments tonight. First, I'd like to thank you, Dr. Lynn Glickman. You're relatively new to the role, but I couldn't be happier with your leadership. You've navigated a very difficult year and made many extremely tough decisions with compassion, level-headedness, and clear communication, all qualities of a great leader. And I appreciate you reviewing tonight the data that changed your decision. I understand the rationale that there is power to focusing on one option and not diluting your planning efforts. That really resonates with me. But I request that we do spend some very serious dedicated time on planning a return to on-site, and that you leverage the collective knowledge of the community. Because just as businesses across the country are doing, we really need to assess how we safely return to school. While one option is fully remote and the perfect option for some who are at higher risk, it cannot continue to be our only option. We need to challenge ourselves as a community to do better than that. I think rather than being scared by these recent local events like the Lake Zurich camp, we need to learn from them. We need to ask ourselves, what can we do better? The CDC and the American Association of Pediatrics have both released statements recommending a return to the classroom if possible. I encourage you to read them in their entirety, as they clearly outline how the benefits outweigh the risks. And the data are going to change. They're going to change every day. That's just how science works. We learn and we adjust our views, and we challenge hypotheses using the scientific method. So the data is going to keep changing, unfortunately. But this guidance to return on site is especially true for districts such as ours, where we're fortunate enough to be able to. We are well funded, we have well-maintained schools, we have engaged parents, and we have excellent access to technology. It's going to be difficult to take our lead from any other district. We need to make sense. We need to do what makes sense for us and our community. We cannot downplay the importance of getting these kids back to school, where they can benefit from the social interactions and the structured routine. And I know you all know that. When my daughter found out that we were going fully remote, I saw the devastation in her eyes. Being from Park School, she said to me, "But Mom, we're wolves. We need our pack." How Ashley said. I'm sure I'm not the only one who worries about the toll this pandemic is having on our mental health. The isolation is not normal, and we're social creatures by nature. The problem is that we're going to find a way to be social, no matter what. And by bringing kids back to school with strict safety guidelines and structure, it allows them to be social in a safe way. And without this, they're going to interact, but not in a safe way. And I think that's a lot of what we're seeing with these increased cases across Lake County. Unfortunately, you're naive or overly optimistic if you think there's an end in sight to this. The cures and the vaccines are a ways off, if even achievable. And we need to start testing now these approaches to returning on site so that we can have these learn and confirm cycles that help us understand what's working and what is not as we drive to a new normal. It's good for all of us. It tests our agility and our adaptability as long as we do it in a safe way. And I fear that a return in November is going to come with additional challenges. With cold and flu season and cold weather that's going to limit our options, it's going to be very challenging. But if we have to wait until November, I think the District 46 community would really appreciate a clear strategy on how we're going to leverage the data from other districts that have decided to return back on site this fall, so that we can increase our probability of success as we reopen. Perhaps we can do this through some sort of community focus group, because I think we can learn a lot from businesses, different sectors as they have opened. And at the end of the day, we're all in this together. So I do want to thank all of you for your time and your effort. I know you've thought a lot about this, and I want to thank all the teachers. I know this is supposed to be their fun summer where they're having a break from all their activities, and they didn't really get that this summer. But so thank you, and I hope you take these considerations into mind.
Thank you. Okay, Eileen?
I have to be center stage?
Yep.
Okay, sorry. Hello. My name is Mylene Van Diggelen. You might have seen some of my comments on the Community Consolidated Facebook page. I support remote learning because I'm a substitute teacher in the district, and I am in the classrooms, and I see how the classrooms work and everything like that. But at the same time, my heart goes out to all of the single parents or the parents who have to work full time. I was raised by a single mother, and it blows my mind how you're going to do this. But the safety is always the first and most important thing for any parent to think about for their child. And I understand that. I really do. I have come up with some ideas, and I'm sure the district and the board have thought of them too, because in talking with teachers and talking to parents, there is a connection with the first couple of weeks of school that helps teachers teach in the classroom and the children connect with their teacher. And that's what the teachers are missing the most, I feel, is that connection. I had drawn up a plan in my head. I think the problem would be busing is what my idea was. And I don't know if there is live streaming for the classrooms or if it's just Zoom meetings for the classrooms. Do you know, Jim? You don't know? Okay.
The Google Meets is what they were going to
Google
do, and I
Meets?
believe they were going to be able to record them so they can be asynchronous learning as well.
Okay, because my idea was like have for all K through 8, doing like a hybrid kind of thing for at least the first 2 weeks, just so parents can have an idea of what going to school is going to be like, but as well as the teachers who want to teach in the school, connect with the students. And my idea was to have a block. A through L would be AM classes, and M through Z would be PM classes. While the AM classes are in school, the PM classes would live stream the lesson. And then children that had free lunches would get a sack lunch to go home. And the afternoon children could eat at home, or when they get to the school, they could get their sack lunch. And then in the afternoon, the MZ through Z is in school, and the A through L are live streaming. But if that's not the option because of cost in the school, it's really difficult. But I just feel remote learning is probably the best right now, just because numbers are rising and we don't know what's going to happen. But maybe, and sorry, I missed part of it because I was teaching privately at home remotely, but I missed part of it. Is it like a soft entrance after the remote? Like how long is the remote learning and then a soft entrance kind of thing?
They were planning on try and come back fully or on a hybrid model in November.
Okay, all right.
After the first trimester would be remote.
Okay, so, and I mean, the only thing that's concerning to me is school starts like on a Wednesday, and I was hoping maybe safety-wise, before people travel, before Labor Day, my idea could kind of work, but who knows? I don't know. I empathize with all the parents. The community, I feel also needs to start helping. And I had the idea of maybe hiring high schoolers for those pods, the pandemic pods or something. But I feel like the district is trying their best to make it work for the parents that work full time out of the home or single parents and stuff like that. They really are trying to think of every option to help the kids. And there are a lot of kids that they are thinking of helping, and the staff and everything like that. So I want to say thank you to Dr. Glickman and to Jim and the board and all the teachers that were on to making the decision and everything like that. If you are interested in my idea, I can send it to you, but I'm pretty sure you guys are set in your way. And good luck to all of you parents and your children. I will miss substitute teaching them. I love them. They're wonderful children, and I hope to see all the kids again at some point in the school year. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Chris, up to you.
Yes, before I start, Jim, you had said that public comments we cut them off online at 7:10. I'm hearing that there are some people who would like to continue commenting. Would you like that opened, or
Yeah,
should we hold up?
you can open them,
Okay.
or you may find that they're duplicate questions as they are anyways. So you can just scan through those and see what we need.
Okay, so for those out there watching, that survey is still open. You will be the last comments that are read. So I'm going to start with questions, general questions, and then comments. So Kim Petrie states or asks, what will remote learning look like for pre-K program? Will the teachers do classroom Zoom meetings? Will these be required to attend for pre-K? Also, will they take the place in the morning or afternoon? Kim Terry asks, would it be possible for students to have a supply pickup day at school to be given hands-on activities for science? Kim Petrie asks, how will kids in pre-K program who have IEPs get the help that they need? How will speech, OT, and PT work remotely for pre-K? Will the therapists be doing one-on-one Zoom therapies as well as teachers in pre-K? My child will be getting a hearing aid soon and is in the pre-K program. How will this work then with doing things remote for her so she is still getting extra help she needs for the IEP? How are you going to handle the FM systems? Is there any way we can have an FM system advice to use for home, to use at home for her? Thanks. Lindsay Fry asks, would there be any opportunity for incoming kindergarten students to meet teachers in person, socially distanced? Jenny Kim asks, what is remote kindergarten going to look like? Are kindergartners expected to be in front of a computer for 5 hours a day? What is the structure of kindergarten this year? Amy Slutsky, last week's guidelines from ISB give detailed plans for phase 4 and mention no need to close school should we return to phase 3. They also strongly recommend on-site instruction for students with special needs, mentioning this population multiple times. They provide specific examples of schedules putting this population first. If special students are not receiving special considerations now, despite ISB's suggestions, when will the board follow the guidelines? Jenny Kim asks, are kindergartners going to be provided with all of the supplies they need? If kindergarten is half day, are they expected to be in front of a computer the entire time? Isabel Krapika asks, if just a couple of schools will be available, how can you guarantee the safety of children while exposing them to multiple age groups? Are you seriously considering allowing first graders with seventh graders to share the space and the restrooms? Jennifer Dearlove asks, how are teachers and staff going to build rapport with new students? Is there a possibility for teachers to take time to have one-on-one meetings prior to the class beginning? What are the district's criteria to resume in-school classes? How are IEP evaluations and support going to be handled? How are you planning to support children new to the school in building relationships with other children? Are school laptops the only units available to connect to school, or are personal devices an option? Will laptops be distributed to each child or each family? Barbara Pink asks, how is it safe to create safe centers, but not to send kids back to school? It doesn't seem to make any sense to bucket a large group of kids of various ages into a large room and hope the best. If one person becomes sick, How will that be treated? A closure for the whole school? Kristen K asks, will teachers be teaching from their physical space classrooms during the remote learning? Hold on, let me scroll through this one. Was a positive, Jennifer Rodrigo asks, was a positivity rate of Lake County or Graves Lake used in helping to make the decision to go remotely? Will synchronous lessons be recorded if students cannot attend during school hours? And if so, will attendance be adjusted, or will students still be considered absent if they're unable to do synchronous class lessons? Will annual IEP 504 meetings still occur? Can parents request earlier meetings to adjust plans for remote learning? Or will a case manager be reviewing cases and suggesting specific changes specific to remote instruction? Will Safe Center registration be set days, only all 5, flexible? Kaylee Economist asks, who will be providing computers, Chromebooks for the students? Barbara Pink asks, what is so different about resuming on-site now versus November? November will be at the height of cold and flu season, and there will be no wiggle room to change or adapt procedures at that time. Seems like another fake milestone to continue the virtual learning, which is not effective learning for all grades. Joseph Slutsky asked, how do you plan to address increased school refusal when students refuse to continue to log on and parents are unable to force the issue in fear of damaging their child's mental health? Christina McLeod asks, will parents and children meet the teachers eventually? Kaylee Economist asks, if parents have more than one student at home for remote learning, will their schedules interfere with one another? Jenna DiVincenzo asks, will Chromebooks be provided? If so, when will those be made available? Becky Wilson asks, has the start date of the school been looked at since K2 won't be getting their Chromebook until August 30th? Catherine S. asks, when and how will Chromebooks be issued for incoming third graders? How will specials work? Will we be required to provide supplies for art? Will PE be more interactive than in the spring? Amy Vagnano asks, last year my 3 children had difficulties accessing links or participating in any Google Meets, and this year I have 4 children trying to access everything at the same time. Will technical difficulties be addressed, and will by children's grades be lowered when they are unable to participate or complete assignments? Rebecca Ronsman asks, what does this mean for sports usually offered through school? Some areas have sports such as baseball still going on with both practice and games. Will GMS be allowing any sports? Kristen K asks, will placement letters still be considered in regards to teaching assignments? Jamie Robinson asks, I may have missed this, so I am sorry that if it is redundant. Will the staff on site for the Safe Centers be able to assist younger, maybe first-time user students with Chromebook support? Amy Vagano asks, will the meal program, breakfast and lunches available for pickup at schools that began last March and has continued through the summer continue into next year? Isabella Krapika asks, how are several children from different ages and grades going to attend class in the same spaces? Are there going to be accommodations so there's enough silence in order to pay attention? Who's going to help them if they have questions? Are children with ADHD going to have special support? Sorry, moving to the next tab. Nancy Grundy. Please consider keeping kindergarten as a half-day program for school this year. Whether or not school resumes in November or later, than the likelihood that masks will be worn and social distancing is needed will be high. This is difficult for kids this young, and half days seem to be a better option. Also, in regards to children who have an IEP, how will these needs be met in remote learning? Will their case managers stay the same when the transition to in-person learning is made? The same question remains for regular classroom teachers as well. Will the teacher and class stay together once the in-person becomes an option? Thank you. Sean Alb asks, I expect my child to have an in-school learning option. E-learning was a complete failure for him, both educationally and emotionally. He was unable to learn and lost significant precious learning time. If no school option is available, I will be starting a class action lawsuit to have my high taxes related back to me since I have to find an outside learning option. Lisa Boxer makes a very long, beautiful statement. And Lisa, really long, and I love your passion, but I might miss some of it. It's just got my eyes are going a little funny. My last day of class was March 13th. After that day, so many things changed. My class and I missed out on many things together: laughs, hugs, stories about our lives at the end of year celebrations. When I found out we were not going back last spring, my heart was broken, truly broken. I wanted nothing more than to be in the classroom, teaching fifth grade via Google Meets from my family room while all of my children were home doing the same thing was not fun, but somehow we made it work. There wasn't much time to learn so many new things of teaching. There wasn't much time to plan with teammates. There wasn't much guidance from ISB because no one ever thought something like this would happen, but somehow I made it work. Spent hours upon hours planning lessons in order to teach my students to the best of my ability. I sat down to teach at 9 a.m. and never left the spot except to grab a snack and make dinner for my family. Then I was back to work until 8 p.m. I had a plan, downloaded different tools for learning, taught via Meets, called parents, worked one-on-one with students, graded assignments, logged those assignments into Infinite Campus, and caught up with students that were behind. I worked more and harder than I had ever in my 24-year teaching career. Did I complain? Of course I did. I complained because it was the last place I wanted to be. Did I know it was the safest place for all of us to be? Absolutely yes. Fast forward to July 27th. I can't even tell you the stress and worries I have on a daily basis. I miss the kids. I want to be in the classroom giving hugs and high fives, but I know what the students' day would look like, and I believe it would cause more harm than good to have them in the environment being laid out by the CDC and ISB. Desks 6 feet apart, facing forward, with the teaching stand in the front of the room with no group work, no contact, and masks for 7 hours, eating at your desk in the classroom and not being able to sit with friends, scheduled bathroom breaks, PE, and recess 6 feet apart with no contact. As a teacher, how do I stand there while a child is struggling, or even worse, crying, and not be able to go over to them to console them or give them a hug? The list goes on and on. This is not good for children's social and emotional well-being. The reason I am reaching out is because I'm absolutely horrified by some of the Facebook posts I'm seeing from people who I thought valued education and human beings. The mean, awful things I've read, things that I would never think to say about anyone. Things like teachers work for us since we pay the taxes, and teachers are going to sit at home and collect their fat paychecks. It was hurtful and upsetting. I am not saying I am any better or more important than any essential worker, doctor, nurse, daycare teacher, nursing home employee, restaurant owner, store employee, and the list goes on and on. They are amazing, brave individuals who risk their lives every day for you and for me. Just like many of you, I am a wife, a mom, and a daughter. I am also a teacher. I want my students to learn every day, and I want them to have a fun learning, to have fun learning. This will not be easy for anyone. I emphasize with everyone who has been remote learning and about to enter it again. I saw what goes on some homes and how stressful it is. I couldn't imagine having small children at this point in my life. The format does not work for anyone. This is not a one-size-fits-all situation. We will make it work, you bet. Why? Because we love what we do. Please know that teachers everywhere love your kids and want them all to be healthy and safe, so everyone can go back to school and laugh together, give those hugs, tell those stories, and learn together. So please, Facebook friends, think about what you're going to post before you post. I've worked for the district for 23 years, and I wouldn't want to work anywhere else. The community is known for pulling together in the worst of times and for trusting what is best for everyone in the long run. Please be kind. Robert Makino writes, first, thank you for giving a detailed explanation for the change. What would you need to see as far as the virus cases in Grays Lake, Lake County, in order to have kids go to school 5 days a week in November? We need some type of standards to go off of. Here's a local example of no cases at a summer camp. Goddard and Third Lake has 15 kids per room, no masks for kids, only teachers. Kids do stay with the same kids all day and do not move rooms. Cleaning every day, temps taken at the door, no parents allowed in other than pickup. Parents must wear masks and have temperature taken. No cases this summer. Can packets with worksheets be picked up at the school so we don't have to print everything at home? Kim Bosk writes, please don't trust parents to not send their kids to school sick. I have known parents that have sent their kids to school pumped up on fever medication to get their kids through the day. Adriana Tellez Gallian writes, tough decision, but it's for the best. Thank you. Vincent Domier writes, how are safer, less funded private schools able to provide on-site learning or hybrid? Is it due to them being smaller? I imagine that they're looking at taking the same precautions our public schools are. And Barbara Pink. I'm very saddened by the lack of focus on how IEPs will be treated. My son's IEP last year went into the trash, and we have no support until summer school, which was 4 sessions. Very disappointed. Clayton Gable asks, will there be an increased teacher communication with parents? At the very minimum, a weekly email with student expectations and assignments would be appreciated. Joseph Gonny, thank you everyone for all the hard work that you put into this plan and the tough choices that had to be made. Collectively, you've come to the most level-headed and fair plan possible. You have my support and heartfelt appreciation. Some may disagree, but this plan seems to address the broadest set of concerns in our community. We all benefit when the community's children have a chance to learn in a safe environment, no matter their specific circumstance. I think you accomplished that. Ashley Mahoney writes, I noticed that there's still a half-day option for kindergarten when remote, but are we going to be full day if and when we return to school? Our children are already losing so much. It would be highly beneficial to get our kids back into full day when the rest of the school goes back. In addition to it being good for their emotional well-being, it will not be sustainable for families in this community to have to try and find childcare mid-year. I understand the thoughts behind shorter days for our young children or our young learners when trying to learn at home, but I do not see how this is valuable to their education once we can safely return to school. If the other elementary grades can return to school safely for a full day, so can our kindergartners. Mark Harms writes, thank you very much for the plan, to the planning team, Dr. Glickman and the board for their consideration and ability to roll with the ever-changing landscape of the virus. I understand that everyone wants to go back to school. The parents, the teachers, and the kids. They would all like the world to go back to the way things were, for everyone to be back in the classroom, leaving behind the various concerns and interruptions that have become part of everyday life. I am very glad and relieved to hear the new plan. I think getting a better view of the obstacles before us, and being prudent with the health of our children, our teachers, and our families is wise. I think it is also wise to collect more data to find the best and most economical way of returning our children to the classroom. Each day, more innovations are being created, more ideas are being surfaced, more opportunities to find the best way possible are coming forward. When the time is right, we'll have those innovations to help us do it in the best possible way. From Edward Johnson. If the online school day is passed, how does the district expect me to afford childcare teacher while still paying $16,000 a year in property taxes, 13 of which goes to the school district? Since there will be no need for support staff, gym coaches, janitors, etc., I assume you will be returning that tax monies to us. I choose to pay high taxes because of what is supposed to be one of the best school districts on the state. But if passed, you are expecting me to pay outrageously high property tax and a large sum for private teacher, given my wife and I both work full-time jobs. Ken Schmidt writes, I'm a resident in D46. It is my understanding that you're considering opening the schools this fall, but due to the COVID-19, only remotely. Children are far less likely than adults to get seriously ill from the virus, and it is almost never lethal to them. There is almost no evidence of children infecting adults. So why are the schools not opening with children on site? The common flu is much more dangerous to children, and schools do not close for that. Don't you want to follow the science? The few vulnerable students could attend remotely. Vulnerable elderly teachers could be replaced with younger, healthier teachers in the classroom, but still contribute remotely. Last spring, remote teaching turned out to be an utter failure, so I do not see how repeating this method would be effective. Also, remote teaching deprives children of socialization. It creates an undue burden on parents that go to work or for whatever other reasons, unable to stay home and attend to their children during the day. Hiring a sitter is pricey, or a nanny that can help with schoolwork is very expensive. Quarantines also cause other maladies like increased parental alcohol and drug use, anxiety, depression, child abuse, or suicide. If you choose to proceed with remote teaching, I think taxpayers should get refunds. Since facts and logic overwhelmingly support my position, I believe keeping schools closed could only be justified by irrational fears, laziness, or political reasons. Remote teaching would be a colossal mistake. I implore you to let the students attend on-site. Zach Camp states, let the kids go to school. Listen to the doctors and the CDC. If the teachers don't want to do that, that's understandable, but you can find someone who will. Not one had been transmitted from kid to teacher. Jeff Rosen writes, as many parents I've spoke with, the majority of Grays Lake families are highly disappointed in our schools. The board, the teachers, the union should be ashamed of yourself. You are no teacher or educator. The kids were never considered. Shame on all of you. Sharon Roberts writes, this is nothing but the teachers holding our kids hostage yet again and the district folding again. Our kids and community deserve so much better than all of you. Pathetic humans you are. Tyler Funneman writes, the problem with the decision to go remotely is that the decision flies in the face of federal and state guidelines set forth for opening schools. If the administration wants to unilaterally divulge from the guidelines set forth by the experts on opening schools, then it needs to show the parents and students of D46 what exactly it will take to have in-person instruction. Currently, the COVID positivity rate in Region 9, Lake and McHenry counties, is 4.4%. That is half of what the state allows for in-person school. The Surgeon General said today that if a state's positivity rate is below 10%, then schools should open. If our current rate does not satisfy D46 administration, then what will? Simply saying wait for a vaccine is not a plan. The fly by the seat of our pants approach and simply waiting and simply seeing where things are in November is not a plan. These are questions that need to be answered prior to any vote taking place. I don't think anyone in our district has an issue with remote learning to start the year. The question is, when November 9th approaches, what will the administration be looking at to decide to move to in-person instruction? It is quite mind-boggling to hear some of the decision makers concerned with outbreaks in other states as a reason we should not reopen. This is why you don't get your news from anywhere other than the IDPH. And unfortunately, it's evident that D46 refuses to listen to their suggestions. Illinois Department of Public Health consists of scientists and epidemiologists. Although remote learning will be agreed upon, let's make sure we listen to the experts and also craft a plan that also returns us to in-person learning. Michelle Rotolo writes, there are multiple people speaking at one time. Stacy Deegan writes, you are worse than Hitler. Teachers union is a disgrace to children. Dan Snuck writes, this board and union is a joke. No pay for any of you unless you are in school. Derek Johansson writes, this teachers union is a threat to outlet children. Kids should always come first. No science says this is dangerous to our kids. If teachers don't want to teach, then don't be a teacher. Non-essential. Vincent Domier writes, please see the data from the state and our county's websites. Includes a link. Positivity threshold for Lake County is 4.7%. We are way under the 8% that the state wants to see. It is a 1.3% change in 30 days. Then look at the 5-day hospital intake. It has fallen for 2 straight weeks, with less than 10 people being admitted per day for the entire county. 1.55% of Lake County's 696,000 population has tested positive, and 0.059% of its population has died from COVID. Lake County is averaging less than 1 COVID death per day over the last 30 days. Are these decisions being made with the data above? Ultimately, based on the low numbers in this data, will we ever go back while the virus exists? Please provide us hope for the future. Give me a second, because now I have to go back to the other ones that came in and find where we left off. Matt Stark writes, how can we give proper people feedback when teachers are not learning appropriately? Amber Heinz writes, would there be a way for kids to personally meet their teachers for even 10 minutes at a scheduled time? Kind of like we did with kindergarten? Lauren Adams writes, will registration fees still be required, or is anything refunded back? Another school district in the area refunded all registration fees due to circumstances or offered all school supplies be available for each student with the fees paid. Melissa Hutchinson writes, will children be able to submit work after the 8-to-2 framework for those whose parents are working full-time? Isabel Krapico writes, I can't help but be disappointed to see the district that doesn't offer a full plan on regard to the safe spaces before voting on the plan tonight. Sean Potter writes, since the teachers had nothing to do the last 3 months of school, how are they going to be held accountable to educate our children this year? Denise Potter writes, what type of physical curriculum will be recommended? Kristen K writes, have any thoughts or solutions been offered to limited bandwidth at households if 4 kids and parents are using the internet at the same time? This is an issue with staggered use in the spring with similar schedule. This may provide difficult. Amy McLester writes, why would not follow the science 4 months ago? We were in phase 1. Now we are assuming everything will stay the same and not improve in 4 months. Barbara Pink writes, I think we need to consider the mission of the public school and our taxpayer contribution. Parents who want to be virtual have an already established program they can tap into to teach their children remotely through homeschool programs. Parents always have the options to choose a private program that is more suited to their needs. Public school systems are supposed to serve the needs for all, and this plan doesn't meet that mission, as we see from the survey results that you showed earlier in the meeting. This plan will only allow for our children to fall further behind. We cannot hide behind the safety glass forever, and I love how someone in person pointed out that we have to learn to adapt instead of hide scared from scenarios that have happened recently. As parents, we all have the safety of our families in mind, and now we need our school system to have the best interest of the families in mind, which means a return to on-site learning. Annie Osis writes, thank you, Dr. Glickman, for your leadership. In these times of uncertainty, we are fortunate to have you and your administration leading us in the safest possible way. Again, my sincerest appreciation. Michael Krapico writes, what does the school board have to say regarding making a decision against the CDC report made public on 7/23? What happens to all the families of the community who are being left out? Wanda Henry writes, I ask you to follow the science. Europe is open and successful with school open. It can be done. Bonnie Bozak writes, thank you for the board and the superintendent for making this difficult decision. I truly appreciate you taking the entire community into consideration. While evidence shows that children do not get the virus as readily as sorry, I have to move things around. While evidence shows that children do not get the virus as readily, it doesn't mean that they don't contract the virus. We need to consider the chain of which student came in contact. The people saying shame on you clearly are just thinking about themselves. If you are wondering, I'm getting this from my brother, who is a doctor of epidemiology. When I talked to him about schools reopening and comments made, he said that if anything, teachers should get hazard pay. He also mentioned that the question of kids going to school is a non-issue amongst his colleagues. He is keeping my nieces home. Again, D46 is making the smartest science decision. Thank you, thank you. Amber Henry says this plan is fine for people with financial means. All of this is causing a huge chasm between the privileged and underprivileged. Amber Learn, I'm a single mom and I just want to know what the final answer is on what we are going to do, what we are going to be doing for the children or the students. I know a lot of people are going to be upset with what the lever outcome is going to be, but we have to think of the safety of our children and teachers. I would love to see e-learning now then hybrid for next semester. I know some families will need help and we can come together as a community and work together. I think if we do e-learning, it should be set up the same as if they were in a classroom and Zoom meeting through the day. Amber Heinz writes, thank you for making the decision that is safest for our families. Just a minute. Mindy Phillips writes, good afternoon. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to our Board of Education, school administrators, teachers, secretaries, custodians, and nurses for all the time and effort in planning for our students for the upcoming school year. I am a mother of 2 students, a 5th grader going into Frederick and a senior at D127. In the current proposed plan for remote learning for the first trimester, it was mentioned that the district would be working on availability of safe centers for students. I have 2 questions. How is having schools open for safe centers differ from allowing our kids to attend class lessons in person if parents choose that route? There will still be children in the school building. Will there only be a certain number of slots available? How will you choose who gets to attend safe centers? Will it be for students whose parents need daycare so they can continue to work, or will it be for our special needs IEP 504 students who really benefit from having that face-to-face instruction in order to get most out of their education, especially in this trying time? Both of my students have IEPs and benefit from face-to-face interaction with their teachers. I'm lucky that my oldest was able to adjust to remote learning, minus the fact that they were told their grades would not suffer no matter what effort was given. My youngest, a D46 student, did not adjust to remote learning as he needs the face-to-face instruction or interaction with his teacher to learn. He told me just the other day that he did not learn anything during the time schools were closed in March. If I tried to help him, he would say that it was cheating and felt like he was doing something wrong no matter what I told him. I worry that if they're remote learning again, whether it be until November, January, or the whole school year, he will potentially lose up to a year's worth of education and even be further behind. As parents, we can help our children so much, but if we are working, then we can't help them until we get home. And by that point, the teachers will be offline, plus our kids will have an additional time on the computer trying to get caught up on that day's work. This, for many students, will be a nightly battle if they are attending classes on the computer during the day and then potentially have more time finishing their work. So again, how do you propose the safe centers will be used and who gets to attend? Thank you for your time and reading my concern and all the work that you have put forward. Okay, sorry. I just lost my spot. Okay. Francina Acolano writes, just wanted to say thank you. We're all doing what's best, the best that we can during this pandemic. You are appreciated. Donald Stacks writes, The bottom line is the district folds under union pressure, even against science, data, and parent surveys. Majority of those in favor of learning or of e-learning are teachers. We parents see on Facebook posts teachers from all over the state commenting and defending these actions, but never parents. All while teachers are out not social distancing. It's literally on their Facebook pages. I've seen many posts say, if you care for examples. This has to do with one thing only, the union living up to the obligation of the Democratic Party and the teachers following orders. It's horrific that elected board members would fold so hard. Election day for this board cannot come fast enough. Enough is enough. Michelle Anderson writes, thank you for your thought out explanation. I am embarrassed by most of the comments from public comment. There are many parents who support your decision. Thank you for putting our kids first. Dr. Chris Murphy writes, will dental and physical forms still be required for registration? Amy McLuster writes, unprecedented times calls out of the box thinking. Serve the community and the best. Serve the community the best. Look at Wisconsin. They are using high schools to socially distance using K-8. Jennifer Engum writes, on behalf of the level-headed Grayslake parents, I apologize for all the rude comments, completely uncalled for. I sincerely hope that the parents that sent those nasty comments move out of our town. Thank you D46 for making a difficult decision. Kim B writes, thank you for all of the hard work that everyone has put into the plan. Everyone seems to forget what happened recently in Lake Zurich. Kim Petrie writes, just give me a second here. More comments came in. Kim Petrie writes, can we please have a separate meeting for second trimester for just pre-K parents? I have noticed this meeting is much more focused on K and up, and I think it would make things much easier since the plan for pre-K is looking different. Thanks for all that you're doing. Suzanne Beal writes, I cannot believe that some of these comments against our teachers and support staff. Of course they want to work, and providing e-learning will absolutely be work, but they have the same concerns for themselves and their families' health as we all do for ours. The US has overall not handled the pandemic well. We cannot look at Europe as a model for school, and Europe has handled this much better than we have. I do love the idea that to have students individually meet their teachers, and that would be a wonderful opportunity for an outdoor meet and greet before the weather turns. Phil Fox writes, I would like to know what the school board is doing about giving the residents back their taxes that they were just raised by almost $1,000. All the building utilities are half of what they used to be. General school supplies, office supplies were purchased less. All of your expenses were a lot less. Tomas Ward writes, thank you for closing the schools. It's a shame that some of these people don't realize the current COVID numbers are low because we are socially distancing and remote learning. Going back to schools will cause the numbers to go up. The studies on kids and COVID are not solid, and scientists are learning new things. All of these people pushing for the schools to open don't care about the risk, teachers and factuality being put at risk. If 1% of people die from COVID being spread by kids, then all of these people are pushing to kill 1% of all the people that work for these kids. Teachers agreed to teach kids in a safe environment. They work hard to teach them online. Stop acting like these teachers don't care because they don't care about putting their lives at risk. Sean Potter writes, what is the point of you reading all of these if you don't intend to answer any of them? Amber LaCroix writes, can we try to allow for students to ask questions in real time? In addition, can we think about the best way to create a remote learning environment that will encourage students to ask questions? That is it. Y'all still there?
Thank you, Chris. Sorry, I had to get my microphone back on. Okay. Next is on the agenda are action items. These are agenda items voted on the board at this meeting. The first item up for action is motion to approve the 2021 reopening plan.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Okay. Anybody have any comments or questions?
Jim, this is Jim. There's a lot to unpack from those public comments, right? There's obviously a lot of passion out in the community for the change in this plan. To say that science wasn't consulted, and I know I'm going to address a subset of these, I just feel like there's some of them that just can't pass. To say that science wasn't consulted in this decision is ridiculous. The Lake County Health Department executive director recently said that, and I'm paraphrasing here, but if any of you superintendents are thinking of opening your doors in the fall, have a remote plan ready to go. COVID-19 is in our community and is coming to your building. I'm not sure how much more clear it can be that opening the school does not seem like the best approach right now. I understand there's a lot of frustration and confusion on the part of the parents. And it's that kind of thing. It's what's going on. It's I guess if we think about the two paths we can take, if we take the safest path, at the end of the day, it's going to look like an overreaction. And I think that's the ideal pandemic response, right? It's going to look like an overreaction because we didn't have an outbreak in our schools, and kids didn't get sick, teachers didn't get sick, families of kids didn't get sick. So will we ever know if this was the exact right decision? I don't know. Maybe it would take a neighboring district that makes a different choice for us to really compare and contrast that decision. I fully support this plan. I think it's the right course of action. And the last thing I wanted to comment on is some of the comments regarding the teachers and administrators. I can't let that pass either. Our teachers have worked double time, if anything, to get their remote learning plans up to speed. Nobody expected this on March 13th. All of our teachers did the best they could with the love in their hearts that they have. And I know with this time that we've given them to work on what the remote plans are going to look like in the fall, it's going to be even better. I just think it's, and I know it's a limited set of people who made a comment like that, but it's ridiculous. And we're all in this together. I want to make that clear too. The teachers were not the sole impetus for this change. The impetus for this change was looking at the science and trying to do the best thing for our community. Thank you.
Jim, I'd like to offer some comments as well. There is a lot of frustration out there for the families that is well understood and certainly well merited for something like this that none of us, or most any of us, have probably never experienced. I like my colleague, Mr. LaCroix, heard a lot of very harsh comments that really are unbecoming of the community. You have 3 educators who are on the board and who have worked as well with the teachers and administrators to come up with a plan that looks at science, takes safety into account, tries to provide for the families that are marginalized and or don't have a louder voice in the community. And I think it's just important to strengthen that comment and share that. I know we're all in a highly emotional state, but it's important that we work together and consider all of the people who have gone into a decision like this. So I, like my colleague, fully and completely support an online remote plan and will continue to do so until it is safe to return to school. Thank you.
Mr. Weedman, I'd like to offer a response to similar to what Mr. LaCroix said. You know, a lot to unpack here, but I think the three words that resonate with me is safety, continuity, and the regular guidance changes that we're seeing that make me fully support this decision to open up in a remote learning environment. I'm really concerned with a lot of the comments just around the need for the children to have socialization as part of their development and growth. I have two children here in District 46. I wholeheartedly want them back in school. I wholeheartedly want them in a position where they can socialize with their peers. I also recognize that socialization can come with a cost, that for those that are advocating for schools to reopen for socialization, well, if you layer on the social distancing guidelines, right, and that's all mitigated anyway. So it's not going to be that heightened um, pre-March level of interaction and engagement that our children have become used to. Um, you know, factor in too that just because the numbers thus far suggest that children are low risk, you know, I think it's a potential false positive, right? Our children have been a hyper protected class. As soon as this thing hit, we were very vigilant with numbers less, far less than what we're seeing in terms of daily counts now. Very hyper vigilant to protect our children, to shelter in place. And so I think folks probably have a false sense of security in terms of the impact on children. Um, and I think we must be very cautious as to not thread the needle and liken this to the common cold or flu, and recognize that, you know, the impacts of COVID-19 are far reaching. The lifelong impacts of this unfortunate virus that could ultimately lead in death also has, for those that do survive, lifelong health implications. And when we start talking about being inclusive in our community to our children, we have to recognize that we have so many children in our district with underlying medical conditions that put them at a higher risk of contracting COVID and developing serious long-term, if not fatal, ramifications from this disease. So, um, you know, I think we've had a beta test, if you will, if we look at the lichens to Lake Zurich, if we look at what happened in the camps in Missouri, right? I don't know that we need to flip the switch on D46 schools so that we can say, oh, yep, we tried it and now we're in the ranks with some of these others. You know, I do feel like we need to err on the side of caution because at the end of the day, I think while we all can disagree to varying degrees about how to open hybrid models, et cetera, at the end of the day, the health, welfare, and safety of our children is at the core. And I think that's our commonality between all of us, whichever side that you fall on. And, you know, I just appreciate the comments and want the public to know that they were heard, but know that my decision is fully resting on the health, safety, and welfare of the children here in District 46. Thank you.
Okay. I'd just like to give a couple of numbers out there. Even in the CDC guidelines, they said expect 6.6% of the student population to contract COVID. We have 3,800 people or 3,800 students. That's about 250 kids. That's one entire class per grade level in our school if it hits. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. That's not including what would be 24 staff who could potentially be affected. And that many people affected in our school would affect the ability to even provide learning to all those students who are still able to come. The other number is, they say 0.1% of school-age kids could potentially die. In our population of students, that's 3.8 kids, 4 kids. There's the reason why we're not opening. I don't think anybody wants to put one of those in the ground. For those that made comments that were disparaging of the board, the teachers, and everybody else, shame on you. It's unwarranted. We are looking at the science. We are looking at the safety of our students, our staff, and their families first. That's all I had to say.
I'd just like to say that I agree completely with everything that each of you have said. The notion that we aren't considering pretty much everything that was mentioned in some fashion throughout this agonizing decision is absurd. The team that Dr. Glickman has assembled to put this plan together, to compile this information, to provide the communication for the community, has looked at this from every angle they possibly can, while the ground keeps shifting underneath them nearly every day. And for people to think that this is some offhand, easy decision where we're only considering or thinking about we're doing it because we're caving into the union, or the union is doing it out of their own self-interest, or whatever, is just absurd, abhorrent. It's ridiculous. We are thinking of the safety and the public health of our students, our staff, our community. That's what we're considering. The numbers Jim mentioned, those are the percentages that we'd be looking at. I'm not fine with 250 kids getting sick. Who knows how many of their family members getting sick as a result. Same with the teachers and staff that would probably end up ill, and their families also getting ill. The long-term impact of the disease on those people, the potential for one child or teacher or staff member to die as a result of contracting this disease, tells me that it's worth it to open with remote learning, which is a temporary situation to begin with. And we continue to plan for and hope for at least using a hybrid model in the fall. We'll see what happens and where we are at that time. It's possible we may continue with remote learning then. But where things are now, the picture continues to be muddled, and based on the information that we have and the concern for the community, this is the decision that we're making. So again, I support everything that and agree with everything that you've all said already, and I look forward to voting on this measure.
Christine Braden?
Everything that my colleagues have commented on was well said. Am I getting an echo, Jim?
You're good.
Okay. I just want to add thank you to the community members who came with creativity, with resourcefulness, with ideas. That's what we need right now. We're all in this together. This is hard, and we need those best ideas. So thank you so much. And I'll just say that as a board member, you know, you get a pretty thick skin But as my colleagues have stated, the comments about our teachers and our staff can't stand. You have our wholehearted support. We will look out for your safety. We know how hard you work. We see you. We appreciate you. Thanks.
Thank you, Christy. Christy Miller?
I'm not sure I have a whole lot new to add. I want to reiterate my thanks to all of our teachers. I want to reiterate our thanks to our administrators and to Dr. Glickman. I think it's a tribute to our community that you have worked as hard as you have, many of you as volunteers. I understand that most teachers do not work just from the start of the day to 3:30 or 2:30 or whenever the school day ends, that you spend your own money, you spend your own time, and you love your kids as best you can. It has made an incredible difference in my family's life. My kids have consistently come home and talked about how their teachers see them and know them. So thank you. I also want to echo Christy Braden's comments. I really thank the community members who come to us with ideas, who come even with information that we don't agree with in a calm and rational way. It's very helpful. Everyone is putting in tremendous hours, and those comments are extremely helpful, and we do take them into consideration. I want to thank Dr. Glickman for spending almost 3 full days responding to each and every public comment. That was an incredible amount of work. And I think she should be recognized for that. And then I do want to also offer, I think our teachers are some of the best in the country and the world probably. And I think they are probably on the verge of doing some really amazing, innovative things in their classrooms as they consider remote learning. I'd like to support them in that, to allow them to focus with remote learning. And I'd like to see those innovations captured and shared out, because I think there are communities less fortunate than ours who may benefit from those ideas. So I think that would be amazing. I also want to support any use of our outdoor spaces. Our community has come together to create bike paths and parks. We have space that other districts do not have access to. And I would love to see us use that so that kids can have some time without masks. They can have some time running around, and they can use these spaces that our community has invested heavily in. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Sue, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Weedman,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Nash,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Strack.
Aye.
Thank you. Next is a motion to approve a resolution regarding school reopening for the 2020-2021 school year.
So moved.
I'll second.
Do we need an explanation of that resolution?
Please.
Am I to give it? Okay. That's fine. So this is and I don't have it before me at the moment, but this is the resolution that the board discussed at the last board meeting briefly, correct? Am I talking about this? Are we talking about the same? Okay, good. This is the resolution that allows me and the rest of our administrative team to pivot quickly when things are changing, rather than coming to the board for specific policy changes. Because some of the things that we will do will be not following the guidelines of our policies. And we know that because our policies were not written for remote learning. So if this policy doesn't, if this resolution doesn't pass, what it will mean is simply that we will need to come together more often to do some policy changes. So that's what it's about.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
I have just a comment. I want to make sure that I'm really clear about this. this resolution essentially shifts decision-making power from the public and from the board to the office of the superintendent. And again, I want to be really clear. Dr. Glickman is absolutely trustworthy. I have no doubts about her competence or her desire to serve our district wholeheartedly. That is not my concern, but I do have a concern that it is not operating on behalf of the public's trust to transfer decision-making power to the office of the superintendent. I think our policies are in place because they give us guidelines when times are uncertain. And I've reached out to both IASB's attorney, Deborah Jacobson, I believe is her name. I've also reached out to other districts who are not considering this. And the origin of this resolution was from law firms. However, it's a little bit redundant because the IASB, the press guidance is also being revised. We can expect a revision coming soon that might grant some of that agility that we definitely want to provide our administrators with as they serve at this time. But I will be voting against it for those reasons, and just wanted to share those with you. I've already sent you an email with the chart with all of the research and the questions that I've asked other districts. So I think you all have that, but.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, this is Jason. I would just like to say that I think this resolution would be exactly in keeping with the public trust, in that we need to give Dr. Glickman and the administration the flexibility to deal with this unprecedented time. I would say that her volume of communication to us, I'm not sure if there's some sort of abuse of power you're considering here, or just the general idea. I think I know the answer to that, but I have no qualms about giving this authority to her, in that at every turn we're communicated with, and we still maintain the oversight that we require. So I don't share your concerns on that. And I think it's in keeping with the idea that we are monitoring the public trust.
Mr. Weedman, I'd just like to concur with Mr. LaCroix in terms of Dr. Glickman's high level of just transparency and engagement and collaboration, not only with the board, but the administrators and the unions all throughout this unprecedented process. And I just also like to draw attention to item 4 in the resolution that does allow for the board to restore any action that may have been suspended by the superintendent, provided we feel like that was an aberration of responsibility, or somehow not done in the manner in which we would have otherwise had it. So I would be supporting the resolution.
Okay, anybody else have any more comments? Okay, Sue, can I have a roll call?
Yes. LaCroix,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
Strack,
Aye.
Miller,
Nay.
Mack,
Aye.
Weedman,
Aye.
Nash,
Aye.
Okay.
Jim?
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, no, please finish. I just, I wanted to be able to say a few words before we close tonight, that's all.
Oh, I was just going to say that since we did public comments for the presentation, that we were going to look for a motion to adjourn, but it
Can I
sounds like
say-
Dr. Glickman has something to say.
I do, thank you. So first of all, thank you, board, for entrusting me through that resolution. I do promise not to abuse that power. And Christy, I want you to know I appreciated the conversation that we had about this matter, and fully respect your decision to vote nay on it. I just wanted you to know that. I wanted to speak for a moment about the questions that were asked tonight, because there were outstanding questions that were asked. And as we did for the last board meeting, we'll be using those questions to feed our FAQ. So it will take a little while just responding to those, and because there are some questions that we're going to need to generate answers for, and I rely on many people on our team to help with that. So it may take a little while, but I wanted you to know that we'll be doing that. And then I just wanted to speak for a moment about this evening. So, you know, I've been speaking with friends and family members and colleagues and superintendents across the state about what's going on. And a lot of people knew we had this board meeting tonight. And I had people, you know, worrying for me because they care about me and they care about our school district and worrying how it was going to be. And I told them it's going to be really hard. And it's going to be really hard because people are disappointed and we're disappointed and people are upset and it's a pandemic. And so emotions are so high and people are so tired. And I expected it to be hard. I have to tell you, I did not expect it to be this hard because I did not expect to hear our community members drag our teachers through the mud. My teachers through the mud. These are our teachers and our support staff members worked. It is impossible to overstate how hard they worked in the spring and how hard it was for them. Community members, I don't know if you're aware that the 100 people that gathered all summer long, except for the administrators that were a part of it, everybody else gave of their time unpaid over and over and over and over again. Our union leadership, it seems to me that they've had a full-time job this summer. I'm a pretty resilient person. I have to tell you, it's going to take me a little while to get over the things I heard about our teachers tonight. This is not the Gray's Lake that I speak about when I talk with my friends and family and colleagues. This is not the Gray's Lake I talk about. I don't believe that this is the Gray's Lake that I'm serving. And I hope from the core of my being that those words of anger are born out of just that exhaustion that we all understand and are not really truly indicative of the vile emotions that they sounded like. And that's what I wanted to share. It's going to take a little while to get over that. And for the most part, people weren't talking about me. They were talking about the teachers. So I can't imagine what it felt like to our teachers. That's all. Thank you for giving me that moment, Mr. Woodman.
Thank you. We don't have a reason for a closed session, correct, Dr. Woodman?
We do not.
Okay, so my next is looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
LaCroix,
Aye.
Knapp,
Aye.
Oh, was that Nash or Max? Sorry.
Miller,
Aye.
Matt,
I'm still aye.
Strack,
Aye.
Weedman,
Aye.
Braden.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, everyone.